what Sean Foley's teaching is pressure points, upper parts of the arms up against the chest, and also sort of standing the shaft up on the way back. That keeps the club face and club shaft, he calls it lighter. And when it gets more laid off, or what some people would call on plane, the shaft or the left wrist will tend to get a little bit bowed. So if you look at players, some of the best drivers of the golf ball of all time have stood the shaft up halfway back, you know, about waist high. The shaft is pointing, or the butt end of the shaft would be pointing between their feet and the ball. Jack Nicklaus, it was darn near pointing at his toe line. Even Colin Montgomery, who's going to join us here in a little bit, who was a marvelous driver of the golf ball, he kept the club head well outside his hands and stood the shaft up a little bit. Kenny Perry, similarly, who's a marvelous driver of the golf ball, stands that shaft up. That's what Sean Foley, maybe not to the extent of Jack Nicklaus or Kenny Perry, but that's what Sean Foley tries to get Tiger to do. And when you do that, your left wrist is not going to be in a bowed position. Your left thumb will have a better spot on the club. It'll be under the club, and it'll help you transition. Because if you stand the shaft up going back, when you make that weight transfer forward, the shaft will plane out. It'll find the plane. And if you, I believe, if you take the club back and put it on the plane that you want it coming down, it gets beneath the plane. And that's exactly what he was doing today. And when he gets beneath the plane, you'll see him have a high right shoulder at impact and a high right shoulder when he finishes. And I talked the other night about all the aspects of Sean Foley's teaching that I really enjoy. I mean, there are a lot of things that he teaches that I just think are spot on. So many things. And that evidence is very clear in the swings of Hunter Mahan and Justin Rose. But I do believe that Tiger is a more athletic player than Hunter Mahan and Justin Rose. And I believe that he can come closer to doing all of the things that Sean really wants him to do. The one area where I disagree with Sean Foley's teaching is, and he talks about Newton's laws, and that if you load into the ground, then you're going to have all that energy coming back. And he wants him to spring up out of the ball. Well, if you spring up out of the ball, your weight and your momentum is going up. Problem is, you need to go that way. Okay? You need to go that way. So if you're springing up, that's fine if you're trying to lift a car off somebody's foot. But that's not so good if you're trying to hit a golf ball down the fairway. He needs to move that way. And I've never understood why he springs up. And he says you get more power. Well, if Tiger Woods wasn't springing up years ago, why was he 20 yards longer off of the tee years ago? That springing up, to me, is inefficient. And if it did indeed make you longer, well, then he'd be longer. And he's not longer. And that is the problem area with his driver. And it is more pronounced with his driver than any other club in the back. He is when he's on, where Frank was talking about earlier with his left wrist, when he's on, you can't beat him. You can't touch him. But what he did this week, thus far, last week he was 11th in fairways. This week he's 67th. Last week he was second greens in regulation. This week he's 78th. Last week he averaged 315. This week he's averaging about 275, 280. The inconsistency comes from, I think, the complications that are going on in his golf swing.